Do it.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Push it!
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your pal Noms here, and today we are going to discuss the disastrous technical launch of Cyberpunk 2077, or Cyberbug as it's come to be known on Twitter, as well as Cyberglitch, apparently. Now let me be clear, I have no vendetta against this game or CD Projekt Red. I'm absolutely a fan of them, and personally I've been very much enjoying the shit out of Cyberpunk. Its storytelling is fantastic. Its customization on most fronts is awesome. The depth, beauty, immersion, and intrigue of Night City is honestly unreal, and the level of detail is astonishing. The combat, while a bit clunky at times, is honestly really fun. There's a huge arsenal that you can take control of to dispatch your enemies, and the hacking and stealth system turns almost all combat scenarios into its own unique puzzle. As far as the game design goes, it's excellent. I've come across several criticisms of the game saying that the enemies are bullet sponges and the AI is terrible. I disagree. The enemies are damage resistant as part of their level. This is an RPG after all, and coming across encounters that have enemies that are hard to take down with weapons you currently possess that are ineffectual based on your level is simply part of the game and part of the progression. As for the enemy AI, I think it's actually quite decent. My current playthrough is on hard difficulty, and the enemies don't just stand there and get hit. They fan out to try and flank you, moving from cover to cover, and they also lob grenades in an attempt to flush you out of cover, which honestly makes each encounter very tense and challenging if the enemies are the player's level or higher. The one really big issue in game design that I found, at least so far, was early on in the game when you have a very large friendly AI to help you during certain combat scenarios and gunfights. This guy was dumb as fuck, fat as shit, meaning he had a very large hitbox around him that you were not able to hit because he's an ally, and did basically no damage to enemies, meaning I'd be trying to aim down the sight, and this bumbling idiot would put his shoulders in my crosshair, which prevented me from shooting, not to mention he would just stand around sometimes and fail to draw off enemy fire and cover me while I reloaded. Not to mention having to wait for him to move up with me when we progressed to a new area. That was annoying as shit. Anyone who's actually played the game who's listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So Cyberpunk is not a bad game in any sense of the word. It's actually a fucking fantastic game. The problem is that it's really hard to enjoy this fucking fantastic game because it's been terribly optimized across all platforms, including PC. Now look, technical errors at launch are not uncommon in the gaming industry. CD Projekt Red's masterpiece, The Witcher 3, was plagued with bugs at launch. Honestly, very similar to Cyberpunk. Most of the glitches I've seen from both titles at launch have just been excellent meme value. And by the way, this isn't a defense for the glitches and bugs, it's just a fact. I'm being realistic, okay? A somewhat buggy launch for games of enormous size and depth is somewhat to be expected, especially at launch. So what is the big problem with Cyberpunk 2077's launch? What makes this game's technical issues and consumer outrage towards the game developers far more damnable than some other video game releases? It's because players did have high expectations of the game's polish upon release, and those expectations were only reinforced and heightened by CD Projekt Red themselves without being tampered with at any turn. Now granted, I think there's some blame on all sides of this controversy. I think nuance is important, and we are going to go through the other sides of the story first. Let's start with the media. They have always been jaded towards CD Projekt Red, because CD Projekt Red in most instances have in fact been very pro-gamer and mostly have been consumer friendly and don't indulge in the same level of corporate corruption that publishers like EA, Activision, Bethesda, and recently Naughty Dog, who at this point pride themselves on spinning the media, tend to indulge in. And the second reason is because in the eyes of the media and games journalism, CD Projekt Red aren't politically correct and don't wokeify their games, ruining them in the process. That's why when The Last of Us Part 2 released earlier this year, it came out with the shittest story and possibly one of the most insulting sequels of all time, alienating its own fan base in order to push a political agenda. Despite that, this game is received with universal acclaim from the supposed professionals of video game journalism. That's why despite when Naughty Dog has one of the worst video game crunches of recent years and doesn't pay its employees during a global pandemic which caused disgruntled employees to leak the game and allowed YouTubers to commentate on it, only for Naughty Dog to mass flag channels depriving several YouTubers of income and threatening their livelihoods, games journalism doesn't talk about that. No. They barely say a word. In fact, they try to spin it in the opposite direction, labeling Naughty Dog as the victim, labeling fans as all sorts of nasty things, attacking the creativity of a totally innocent studio like Naughty Dog. Projekt Red, however, releases arguably the best game in history, being The Witcher 3, and games journalism and the media try to vilify it with accusations of racism, which couldn't be anything further from the truth. Projekt Red has a buggy launch for Cyberpunk 2077, and suddenly the media can't shut up about it. Projekt Red, stocks take a massive hit. Suddenly the media are interested. Projekt Red has a buggy launch for Cyberpunk 2077, and suddenly the media can't shut up about it. Projekt Red's stocks take a massive hit after the game fails to perform at launch, and all of a sudden the media are suddenly interested to talk about it. And that's outside of the fact that their takes on Cyberpunk in the first place are garbage, completely missing the point of what Projekt Red intended the game to be, and instead criticizing inconsequential bullshit like alleged transphobia and supposed tedious side missions that they didn't give two shits about doing because they had to rush through it right till the end so that they could pump out their day one review without really giving a shit. Hell, some reviewers in games journalism didn't even play the game properly because they were too stupid to figure it out. And of course, because with games journalism, there's always an agenda. In this case, burying Projekt Red. And the loudest and stupidest parts of games journalism and the media has been rubbing off on the worst of the gaming community. It's been reported long and loud about how terrible the Metacritic review scores were for Cyberpunk 2077. The majority of those Metacritic takes are, from what I've seen, by people who genuinely do not know what they are talking about. Now, it's understandable for someone to cast a 0 out of 10 in a fit of rage for a game they cannot actually play because it keeps crashing on their PS4 or Xbox One. Understandable, sure. But slapping a 0 out of 10 on a title you can't play really isn't providing much nuance to players either. Other than that the game is buggy and glitchy. Players reading that are going to be like, okay, but how's the rest of the game? And I swear I've seen a horde of people in the Metacritic reviews and on Twitter try to validate their displeasure by using Cyberpunk's technical issues to shit on the game at every turn, when in actuality they have no idea because they haven't played. And based on what they say, they can't have played it. The most obvious complaints that I roll my eyes at is claims of bad writing and an empty open world with no RPG elements or interesting side missions, all of which are just blatantly false. In the first 2 hours of my playthrough, I was exploring Night City, and a fixer, who's essentially a merc contract provider, alerted me about a job close by about retrieving stolen medicine from a junkie. You can either sneak into the apartment, steal all his things, and try to take him on, and kill him for the medicine, or you can negotiate with him using a variety of different dialogue options for different outcomes, and solve the matter peacefully. I managed to talk him down and get the medicine, convincing this guy that what he was doing was ultimately pointless, and after I left the room I heard the sound of him blowing his brains out. So yeah, undoubtedly a lot of these reviewers are full of shit. They are either lying about the game's substance, or haven't played the game longer than 2 hours, and if that's because of crashes, then that's unfortunate, but using Cyberpunk's technical issues as a green light to slap a 0 out of 10 throwing a tantrum about how everything's terrible isn't exactly ethical either. Sure, leave your review, but it's important to distinguish the reviews from one another. And where the bulk of hatred is coming from is undoubtedly coming from the game's technical issues, first and foremost, rather than the game's substance. But again, the media, rather than investigate the legitimacy of these reviews, was more than ready to run Projekt Red right into the ground. And since this is the latest and possibly the most controversial gaming event of the year, everyone wants a piece of it, and Twitter seems to be somewhat of a cesspool for gamers, sharing some very meme-worthy glitches like they're a tycoon that just struck oil. Some have even been as bright enough as to compare GTA San Andreas to Cyberpunk 2077. Well, I'm here to tell you, spotting glitches doesn't make you smart, it makes you not blind. I personally never understood how gamers get so super irate at purely aesthetical bugs and glitches. They'll sound off about them like the world is coming to an end. I think minor glitches and bugs are understandable, especially at launch. And for a game as giant as Cyberpunk 2077, what matters is how functional the game is, how smooth it runs, and do the bugs and glitches break the game and cause it not to function. Don't worry, we are getting to that. I will come back to it in a few moments. But again, much similar to Cyberpunk, The Witcher 3 also had these meme-worthy bugs too, and CD Projekt Red themselves made fun of them. The minor hilarious glitches are not the problem with Cyberpunk's launch, they are the byproduct of another, even bigger issue with how this game was marketed. I'm not saying that the bugs and glitches don't exist. They certainly do, but because it's coming from CD Projekt Red, and because Cyberpunk has been hyped up for like 7 years now, people are acting like this is the first time this has happened. So even though I, as someone who has played Cyberpunk 2077, doesn't think all of this mass outrage is entirely justified, lacks nuance, and has somewhat of an agenda at play, why is Cyberpunk 2077's launch indefensible? Well, quite simply put, despite all of the unwarranted backlash, terrible takes, and idiotic reviews, it was CD Projekt Red themselves who lied about their own product. Let's dial the clock back a year and a half, shall we? E3 2019. Keanu Reeves comes out and gives us a breathtaking presentation talking about the game and its release date. April 2020, it's set to release. Months pass. Gamers are excited. We are weeks away from release. CD Projekt Red postpones. Gamers are pissed. Mass outcries for when the game is going to be released. CD Projekt Red assures us it will be done by September 2020. Months roll by. The pandemic is causing everyone to lose their mind, in addition to the supposedly endless wait for Cyberpunk 2077. Weeks out. Once again, CD Projekt Red says, nope, sorry guys, we gotta push it all the way back to November 2020. Gamers are once again pissed, even more so this time round. September passes, October passes, and CD Projekt Red decides to delay the game one more time. In the time between the cancelled November release and the actual December release, CD Projekt Red needs to present details about their massive project to their investors. And here's what they had to say. This article is by Games Radar and it goes into it. CD Projekt joint CEO Adam Kaczynski has praised Cyberpunk 2077's performance on PS4 and Xbox One in an investor call. Speaking earlier this week on Wednesday and transcribed by Seeking Alpha, Kaczynski said that Cyberpunk 2077's performance on the base PS4 and Xbox One consoles is surprisingly good, I would say, for such a huge world. The CEO went on to say that although performance on these base consoles is lower than their Pro counterparts, the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X is still surprisingly good. Recently, CD Projekt Red released gameplay for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X versions of Cyberpunk 2077. We had those extra 3 weeks and we achieved a lot within this final stretch, Kaczynski went on to say. So we believe that the game is performing great on every platform. Of course, according to platform capabilities, but not every platform should be great. So he's basically saying that realistically, don't expect the PS4 and Xbox One, the lower platforms, to perform at the same caliber as the next-gen consoles and PC, but he insists that the game is running well on all of them regardless, and that's blatantly false. He's speaking to his investors, remember, and he's publicly selling them, which means he's publicly selling us. The article goes on. The CEO is referencing the Cyberpunk 2077 delay, which pushed the game back from launching in November to release next month in December around the world. The delay was reportedly due to the game's performance on Xbox One and PS4 consoles, but Kaczynski's comments would seem to indicate that these performance issues have been ironed out. Earlier this week in a financial presentation, CD Projekt Red's leadership talked up the marketing campaign for Cyberpunk 2077 with less than 2 weeks left to go until the game launches on November 10. I'm pretty sure he misspelled that and meant to say December 10. Jesus, whoever wrote this article can't spell. We're about to see plenty more TV, radio, and other adverts for Cyberpunk 2077 airing in up to 55 regions around the world. So remember, these comments from CD Projekt Red's CEO have in fact been translated from Polish, so there's a small chance that there was a translation error. But based on this, CD Projekt Red were essentially lying about their game publicly for their investors, and then spearheaded a massive marketing campaign in the fortnight heading up to the December release, with trailer after trailer and featurette after featurette hitting YouTube, all buttering up our wallets ready to spend on December 10th. And they knew the game had not been optimized correctly. And that's not to mention they were actually blocking and preventing YouTube reviewers from sharing their own gameplay in reviews on both console and PC before the game's release. They were actively trying to prevent people from seeing the finished product, while still touting how excellent it performs. They were saying, no, it's fine, it's going to perform fantastically, you'll see, it's surprisingly good on the lower consoles, and they knew the game had not been optimized correctly, and is not performing to the standard they've told players, and the standard they have set for themselves. So why, if they were willing to delay the game back in April, September, November, why did they not decide to delay the game one last time after December? What was the reason? Was it the fear of fan backlash and mass outrage for another delay? I'm sure that was partially to blame, but that didn't seem to bother them before. So what's the primary reason for not delaying the game one last time? Well, in my opinion, especially when you couple the timing of that investor call in November, the primary reason comes down to two simple words: Christmas sales. CD Projekt Red simply didn't want to discourage their investors by delaying the game past Christmas for yet another year, and they themselves, after putting 8 years into this project, couldn't bear the chance missing out on a holiday season return on their investment. And that is why, in my humble opinion, the game released in the state that it did. As much as I love CD Projekt Red, there's no excuse for lying to consumers about your product. I've got a slightly above average pre-built gaming laptop, okay? 7th gen i7 Intel processor, 16GB of RAM, NVIDIA GeForce graphics card 1050 Ti, and a 4K monitor that can reach 120 FPS on games like Halo the Master Chief Collection, Jedi Fallen Order, and other recent titles as well. Now, with all that in mind, the best I can actually run Cyberpunk on my PC is at medium settings, where I can get up to 25 frames per second, or at low settings with a maximum of 35 frames per second, and that's at 1080p. I'm a huge Xbox player, but I still have the Xbox One original. I got Cyberpunk on PC because I wanted the best experience and didn't want to run the game on decade-old hardware. I am having a good time with the game, but just barely. So I can only imagine PS4 and Xbox One players, how they are finding the experience. It must be absolutely miserable. No wonder gamers are reporting console crashes every 30 minutes, ridiculously slow frame rate, and game-shattering glitches on current-gen consoles. Yeah, it's true this is happening on all platforms, but in CD Projekt Red's own words, they made delays to polish the current-gen consoles variants of the game because they knew it was the worst and downright unplayable. My brother has an Xbox Series X, and he was gloating to me on the weekend about how the game is buggy, but he still gets relatively smooth gameplay with a comfortable 60 FPS at minimum. I suppose it's somewhat commendable that CD Projekt Red was primarily aiming for the game to be optimized for the newer hardware and the PC, obviously thinking towards the future, but unfortunately due to the global pandemic, this backfired very heavily, since there simply wasn't enough manufactured next-gen consoles to go around, and thus so many rightful angry gamers are now stuck with a game that doesn't function due to being piss poorly optimized for their dated hardware. And once more, CD Projekt Red lied about it. Cyberpunk 2077 is possibly the best game in recent years. Yes, some of the backlash is incorrect and undeserved, and yes, the pandemic would have tossed a wrench into production, but the fact of the matter is they still lied. You never lie on the internet. You never lie publicly to your consumers or your fans, because once you lie, people don't trust you. Ignorance can be somewhat understandable, but lying is deceiving and spreading false information knowingly, and once you lie, you're done because you ruin your credibility, your reputation, and people are always going to think twice about trusting you again. Now, just because I am saying this doesn't mean I want CD Projekt Red beaten into the ground. It doesn't mean I want people treating this game's launch like MCC or No Man's Sky or Sea of Thieves, because Cyberpunk 2077's technical shortcomings don't even come close to the disappointing, barren, and broken launches of those games. I'm saying this because CD Projekt Red are meant to be the good guys, the gamers developer, the company we look to that sets the standard. And sadly, they've set a pretty dangerous precedent for themselves and their reputation. But it can still be salvaged. I'm optimistic that they will. I'm sure behind the scenes, no one is more disappointed with the state of Cyberpunk 2077 than CD Projekt Red themselves. I'm sure they are working round the clock to make sure the game is running smoothly as soon as possible, because having played this game, it's very clear that they've poured their heart and soul into it. And it must be heartbreaking to them that some people are simply unable to enjoy it and experience it to the quality they were hoping gamers could. Right, so before I go, it's important to note that CD Projekt Red actually released a public statement and apology regarding the disastrous technical launch of Cyberpunk 2077 and the overwhelming outrage they faced over the past couple of days. So I'm going to read it for you off the cuff verbatim right now, and I'll give you my quick thoughts on it before I wrap this video up. It says, "Dear gamers, first of all, I would like to start by apologizing to you for not showing the game on base last-gen consoles before it premiered. and in consequence not allowing you to make a more informed decision about your purchase. We should have paid more attention to making it play better on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Second, we will fix bugs and crashes and improve the overall experience. The first round of updates has just been released, and the next one is coming within the next 7 days. Expect more, as we will update frequently whenever new improvements are ready. After the holidays, we'll continue working. We'll release 2 large patches, starting with patch 1 in January, and this will be followed by patch 2 in February. Together, these should fix the most prominent problems gamers are facing on last-gen consoles. We will be informing you about the contents of each patch ahead of their release. They won't make the game on last-gen look like it's running on a high-spec PC or next-gen console, but it will be closer to that experience than it is now. Finally, we would always like everyone who buys our games to be satisfied with their purchase. We would appreciate it if you would give us a chance, but if you're not pleased with the game on your console and don't want to wait for updates, you can opt to refund your copy for copies purchased digitally. Please use the refund system of PS Now or Xbox respectively. For boxed versions, please first try to get a refund at the store where you bought the game. Should this not be possible, please contact us at helpmerefund@cdprojectred.com, and we will do our best to help you. Starting from today, you can contact us for a week up until December 21st, 2020. Humbly, the CD Projekt Red team. P.S. PC gamers will also be getting regular updates and fixes improving the game. Right, so that's quite a mouthful. Now, it still doesn't excuse the lie and deception of putting out a game that they knew wasn't optimized properly across all platforms, especially the base last-gen consoles. And it's nice to see them actually address the elephant in the room, coming outright and saying, yeah, we didn't show enough gameplay on the last-gen consoles, and this would have affected people's purchases, and we feel like shit for it. Now, I don't totally buy this. Like I said, once you lie, it's very hard to take that person seriously again. But it is nice to see a company address something so quickly and diligently and openly as CD Projekt Red has just done. Like, Disney still hasn't apologized for The Last Jedi, and it's been 3 years. 3 years today, fun fact. And the most important thing is they are openly offering refunds for anyone who isn't getting the experience that they desired, which is commendable. And the fact that they're being so open with the refund policy does go some ways into righting the wrong. They acknowledge the game isn't ready as of yet. I'm quite disappointed that it's going to take them all the way till January for the first big patch, but better late than never. I'm still having fun with the game. A lot of players are still having fun with the game. It's a great fucking game. It's just, technical issues are a bitch, aren't they? Anyway, so hats off to CD Projekt Red for handling this in the manner that they have. It sets a good example for the rest of the gaming industry and the rest of the entertainment industry as a whole, to be perfectly honest. Again, it doesn't erase the lie. Forgive, but don't forget, if you can manage it. But at the same time, I'm not surprised that CD Projekt Red was ready at the helm to offer a very open and humble apology. So, well done to them for that. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below, and tell me how your experience playing Cyberpunk 2077 has been and what platform you've been playing it on. If you have time, consider staying for this short outro. First off, in case you haven't figured it out yet, this is actually my second channel that talks about video games. If you're interested in movies, television, or pop culture related content in general, you can find me primarily on Anomaly Inc. I've linked my primary channel in the description, and I hope you check it out. You may find something to your liking. Secondly, don't forget to check out the channel's Discord server. It's a gaming dedicated Discord where we talk about Call of Duty, Halo, Doom, Nintendo, gaming news, and other stuff as well. Check it out at your leisure, and who knows, maybe you'll make some friends along the way. Next, I want to give a shout out and thank you to all of my patrons for all of their contributions and support for my work. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate the generosity. If you'd like to become a patron and pledge to the channel, even if it's just $1 per month, the link to Patreon is in the description. Lastly, I want to give a shout out and thank you to my friend, A British Potato, for helping me get this video out in a timely manner. He does response videos on his channel, and chances are he'll have plenty to say about Cyberpunk in the coming weeks, so check him out at your leisure, and I've linked his channel below, so you can find your way there no problem. Finally, here's one last thank you for staying till the end of the video. You are a legend, and I'll see you next time.